Imagine a world where one wrong move could wipe an entire nation off the map. Now imagine that nation is your own. In 1978, the world came terrifyingly close to witnessing an unprecedented catastrophe. A secret nuclear program hidden from the eyes of the world nearly turned a country into a radioactive wasteland. This isn't the story of a superpower's close call. This is the tale of how apartheid South Africa built 6 nuclear weapons in complete secrecy, and how their very existence threatened to tear the country apart. Welcome to the untold story of Project Vola, the code name for South Africa's clandestine nuclear weapons program. A tale of political paranoia, scientific ambition, and a nation on the brink of self-destruction. But to understand how South Africa ended up with its fingers on the nuclear trigger, we need to go back to a time when the country was isolated, besieged, and desperate to secure its future at any cost. It all started with a mine, not just any mine, but one of the world's largest uranium deposits. And in the hands of a regime fighting for survival, this radioactive treasure became the foundation of a terrifying ambition. The year was 1974, and South Africa was in a precarious position. The apartheid government, led by Prime Minister John Vorster, faced increasingly international isolation due to its racist policies. Neighboring countries were gaining independence, and many were hostile to the apartheid regime. In this climate of fear and paranoia, the South African government made a fateful decision to pursue nuclear weapons. The program was shrouded in secrecy from the start. Even within the government, only a handful of officials knew of its existence. The public was completely in the dark. The project was given the innocuous name Vola, which means open in Zulu, an ironic choice for one of the most closed and secretive programs in the country's history. South Africa had a head start in nuclear technology. Since the 1940s, the country has been mining uranium and selling it to the United States and the United Kingdom for their nuclear programs. In the 1960s, South Africa built its first nuclear reactor, Safari 1, with help from the US Atoms for Peace program. This reactor, officially for peaceful research, would later play a crucial role in the weapons program. The man tasked with overseeing the nuclear program was Ampie Roux, a brilliant physicist who studied under Nobel laureate Niels Bohr. Roux assembled a team of South Africa's top scientists and engineers, working in utmost secrecy at a facility called Pelindaba, about 20 miles west from Pretoria. The team faced enormous challenges as well. International sanctions meant they couldn't simply buy the technology they needed. Instead, they had to develop much of it themselves. They also had to find ways to disguise their activities from international inspectors and spy satellites. One of their most ingenious solutions was the development of the vortex tube enrichment method for uranium enrichment. This technique, unique to South Africa, allowed them to enrich uranium without some of the telltale signs that would have given away their true intentions. By 1977, South Africa had produced enough highly enriched uranium for its first nuclear device. But the government wasn't satisfied with just one bomb. They wanted an arsenal. Over the next few years, South Africa built a total of 6 nuclear weapons. These weren't just simple bombs. They were sophisticated gun-type fissure weapons, similar in design to the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Each had a yield of 10 to 18 kilotons, enough to destroy a city. But why did South Africa want these weapons? The official policy never publicly acknowledged during the program's existence was one of nuclear deterrence. The idea was that if South Africa ever faced an existential threat, such as a Soviet-backed invasion by neighboring countries, it could reveal its nuclear capability as a warning. This strategy was known as nuclear ambiguity. South Africa would never confirm nor deny having nuclear weapons, but would drop hints to create uncertainty in the minds of potential enemies. It was a dangerous game of bluff and counterbluff, with the fate of millions hanging in the balance. The nuclear program didn't exist in a vacuum. It was ultimately tied to South Africa's apartheid policies and its increasing international isolation. As more countries imposed sanctions and cut ties with South Africa, the regime became more paranoid and more determined to have a nuclear insurance policy. This paranoia reached its peak in the 1980s. The apartheid government, now led by P.W. Botha, saw enemies everywhere. They believed the country was facing a total onslaught from communists and African nationalists. In this siege mentality, the nuclear weapons were seen as the ultimate guarantee of the regime's survival. But the nuclear program came at a tremendous cost. It drained resources from other areas of the economy and further isolated South Africa internationally. The secrecy surrounding the program also bred corruption and abuse of power. There were rumors of workers at Pelindaba being silenced to maintain the program's secrecy. Moreover, the very existence of the weapons posed grave risks. What if they fell into the wrong hands? What if there was an accident? The apartheid regime was walking a tightrope, and one misstep could have led to catastrophe. As the 1980s progressed, the situation in South Africa began to change. Internal resistance to apartheid grew stronger, and international pressure intensified. The Cold War was winding down, reducing the perceived threat of Soviet expansion in Africa. Slowly but surely, the rationale for the nuclear program began to erode. In 1989, FW became president of South Africa. Unlike his predecessor, de Klerk saw that apartheid and the nuclear weapons program that had grown alongside it was unsustainable. He initiated secret talks with African National Congress, ANC, and began planning for a transition to democratic rule. As part of this process, de Klerk made a monumentous decision. South Africa would dismantle its nuclear weapons and join the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, as a non-nuclear state.
Africa signed a treaty preventing the use of nuclear weapons in New York.
A clarion call to world leaders to sign a treaty that seeks to ban the use of nuclear weapons.
This decision was driven by several factors. De Klerk recognized that nuclear weapons would be a liability, not an asset. For a post-apartheid South Africa, there was also fears that the ANC might inherit the weapons if the dismantling wasn't completed before the transition. The dismantling process began in secret in 1989. Over the next 2 years, all 6 nuclear devices were painstakingly taken apart. The highly enriched uranium was extracted and converted to low-enriched uranium for use in civilian nuclear reactors. Facilities associated with the weapons program were either repurposed or destroyed. In March of 1993, de Klerk made a historic announcement to the South Africa Parliament. He revealed the existence of the nuclear weapons program and its subsequent dismantlement. The world was shocked. Despite years of suspicion and rumor, few had realized how close South Africa had come to becoming a nuclear power. South Africa's decision to voluntarily give up its nuclear weapons was unprecedented. It remains the only country to have developed nuclear weapons and then willingly dismantled them. This act played a crucial role in South Africa's reintegration into the international community and helped smooth the transition to democracy. The story of South Africa's secret nuclear program is more than just a historical curiosity. It offers important lessons for today's world. It shows how a combination of fear, isolation, and technological capability can drive a country to pursue nuclear weapons. It demonstrates the immense risks and costs associated with such programs. And perhaps most importantly, it proves that disarming your nuclear power is possible when there is political will. But the legacy of Project Vula isn't entirely positive. Questions do remain about the full extent of the program. There are concerns about the environmental impact of the nuclear tests that South Africa is believed to have conducted. And there are ongoing debates about what happened to all the scientific knowledge and expertise developed during the program. This South African case highlights the challenges of nuclear non-proliferation. If a relatively isolated country like apartheid South Africa could develop nuclear weapons in secret, what's to stop other determined states from doing the same? As we grapple with nuclear threats in the 21st century, from North Korea to Iran, the story of South Africa's secret nuclear program serves as both a cautionary tale and a beacon of hope. It reminds us of the terrible power of nuclear weapons and the heavy responsibility that comes with possessing them. But it also shows us that even in the darkest times, there's always a path back from the brink. This program that almost destroyed a country ultimately became a story of redemption. It's a testament to the power of political courage and the possibility of change. And as we face our own nuclear challenges today, we would do well to remember the lessons of Project Vula. In the end, South Africa chose a future without nuclear weapons. In doing so, it not only saved itself from potential catastrophe, but also set an example for the world. It's an example we must not forget, for in it lies the hope that one day we might live in a world free from the shadow of nuclear destruction.